One of the things I heard Adam Grant say once is for the question of what do you do if you have imposter syndrome? If you
Mhm.
feel like the responsibility that you've been handed is clearly an indication that people think far too highly of, you know, I have somehow managed to fool everyone into thinking I'm a responsible adult in this way. And he said, consider that they see untapped potential in you.
Right. Yeah. Even when we don't believe it. And then
Yeah.
having the courage, right, to step through that door to that scary thing that we think, oh my gosh, I can't do it. But you'll find that you will be able to do it because you start believing in what others believe for you. That's amazing. That's amazing. So looking back, what's something that you wish you had known about your STEM or the STEM world when you were starting out? Anything comes to mind?
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wish I had known when I entered college was that being a minority in STEM, I ended up being the only physics major in my graduating class who
Mm,
was female, for example. And my goodness, there was no ethnic diversity whatsoever. Our school has gotten better since then, but it was not great then. I wish that I had recognized that that was not a problem for other people to solve earlier. It's something that came to me throughout my college career when the next year's physics class had more people than usual and also a very high percentage of women in it. And after spending some time with that next year's class and the classes that we had together, I realized that we all essentially shared the same personality. The men might be shy or they might be extroverted, they might be opinionated or they might be reserved. But all of the women were very opinionated, were very outgoing, and were very happy to explain exactly what our opinions were and why they were right. And that was when I really started looking into the causes of the leaky pipeline,
mm,
both for women in STEM and also for people of color in STEM. And that was when I really began more of a systems view of understanding how STEM as a community does not necessarily always live up to even its own desires, much less its own values in terms of the impact that we have and what we could do about it in order to change that. Because prior to that time, I'd heard that there weren't as many women in science and mathematics, but I had just looked at it as, oh, well, that's okay. I like science. I like
mm,
mathematics. I'm good at them. So that's not a problem for me individually. And I
mm.
hadn't necessarily looked at my responsibility in helping the women who might be more shy and more
Mm.
retiring to feel just as home in the physics department as I felt.
Yes. So it's not exactly on the question, but it follows directly on what Maria said is that so I was one of two in aerospace and mechanical engineering. So I understand that world too. Going back to my mom again, I grew up on a block that was mostly boys when I was in kindergarten. So and my mama brought me up to believe that no boy can do anything that you can't do too, so I wasn't at all afraid of the boys in my classroom. What I was afraid of was I was that little girl from Oklahoma who had, I mean, I didn't even know engineers existed, right? So I felt so far behind, like in understanding, I felt like the boys had their dads were in the Air Force or their dads
Mm.
were engineers or that sort of thing. And they had a role model to bring them there to stand up for them. And so similar to what Maria said, I was so busy trying to be a role model for myself that I didn't think a whole lot about bringing that next person forward. As I've looked back, one of the things that I thought about last night is some of this. What advice would I give to my 20-year-old self? Is you tend to think about what are the things that I did wrong,
Mhm.
and there's a whole lot of things that I did right. There's a whole lot of things
Mhm.
that I did right.
Yeah.
I was on social media not too long ago because I have a very close friend that has two young daughters that are struggling with things that I didn't struggle with, even though I struggled with different things.